in general, I think ending anonymously owned companies and their exploitation is going to be key to building fairer markets and a more just society. So the more central national beneficial ownership registers come online, the more we kind of undermine the argument that there's something necessary or important about having this kind of anonymity. And the more we undermine the argument that this is somehow business as usual, that this is just the way things are and that it can never change. I mean, globally, the driving force is a desire to prevent corruption, I think, and to address it when it does happen. So obviously, these registers are a means to access information that currently just can't be accessed by most people. But they're also, I think a tool for prevention. And it's actually quite interesting, all of these global laundromat stories that involved UK companies. Almost all of those companies shut down just before the UK established its beneficial ownership register. And so, perhaps this is correlation, not causation, but you can see that the requirement to be transparent and the kind of promise that lots and lots of people are going to be looking at this information is a deterrent to using company structures or corporate structures for illicit purposes. A lot of investors now are actually calling for beneficial ownership transparency because of because of things like the Panama Papers and the huge loss in stock value that companies suffered just for being named in the Panama Papers. So I think it was something like $135 billion in stock value was lost just by companies being named, so not as a result of prosecutions or anything like that. Very important to think about from the outset is how will this data be used and by whom? And what does that mean for the type of information that we produce and how it's presented? And then how do I articulate that in the policy framework that surrounds it? In general, one of the challenges around implementation, as I said, is going to be this question of data quality. Part of that is a lack of clarity around what is actually going to happen with this data and how it's going to be used. Part of it is that it's quite political. The higher quality the data, the fewer loopholes are left for corrupt individuals to slip through. And so, again, that's why it's so important for this data to be quite granular and high quality. Other challenges around implementation, some of the arguments that we keep hearing are around data protection and security. Again, I think that there are ways to solve these problems in the process of implementation that don't compromise data quality that much. And so, we have lots of recommendations that we're providing to the countries that we work with on how they can balance privacy and security with the needs of users and the public access. Another challenge is coordination between all of the agencies that touch this. So it's quite diffuse. Often, there's sort of like an e-governance agency, and then there's the agency that's actually responsible for implementing the company's register, and then perhaps there's another ministry that's pushing through the anti-corruption legislation. And then, of course, there's a completely separate technical implementer for all of this. And so, speaking across all of these different silos and all these different groups is challenging, especially in government, and is something that's really going to have to be addressed in a lot of these countries that are implementing registers now. I think that OGP is a really important platform for providing those kinds of conversations and fora for government to come together, and crucially with civil society, because especially with beneficial ownership, civil society is a knowledge partner.